Welcome to FITBANKER's FBX90 webinar. This is webinar 7 of a series of 10. We run 10 webinar series for participants on our FBX90 program. And generally this is exclusive to participants who are on a mentoring pack. However, today we have a very, very special guest and someone who's very generous with his knowledge and with his insights, and I wanted to equally pass on that generosity to not just our participants, but everybody that's following us on social media. And just thank you all for being here. For all of you that have dialed into this webinar, it's really grateful to have you join us. And I'll introduce Edward in a second. Just to give you a sense of the structure of today, we will probably have a Q&A session with Edward for probably the first 40 or so minutes, and then we will open it to all of you. So as we're going through, if you have any questions, feel free to type them through, and I will pick them up towards the end of the webinar. And I'll also probably be able to enable your audio such that you could ask questions verbally if they're not typed out. Okay, so this very special guest of ours is Edward Anobah. Edward, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here and to be with all of you.
Thank you. So Edward is many things to many people, but he's somebody who's been very inspiring, very insightful to me. He's always been a mentor and guided me in terms of career change, in terms of starting in business, in terms of me understanding my body and my well-being, and that comes from a lot of unique knowledge that Edward has. Edward is a graduate of London School of Economics in Philosophy and Economics, and he is a leadership speaker, a trainer, and a mentor for graduates of many of the Ivy League universities. He's also spoken at many of the large corporates in the financial services sector, such as JP Morgan, Citi, Bank of America, and Ernst & Young, KPMG, many others, to name a few. As well as he mentors people in the financial services space, in the health sector, and many other industries. And he's a great friend of mine, so it's really a real pleasure to have you here, Edward, and thank you so much again for your time and generosity with your knowledge.
I just also want to say that Ronak is a great friend of mine. Ronak, I've known Ronak for a few years now. A fantastic individual. I'm very honored to be here, and I'm very excited to share whatever I can with you and your wonderful audience as well.
Thank you so much, and thank you. We really appreciate whatever you can share. As you know, so we have a 90-day health and body transformation program, and we are just past day 60. We're on, I think, day 65 or day 64, and we've had people on this program. They're on various meal plans, various training programs, and the people in this program are here in 3 categories in terms of either looking for weight loss. Some of them are on a weight maintain program and they're just toning muscle, and some of them are looking to bulk up, so put on weight and build mass. And we've provided them with nutrition plans and training programs that are there to support them. We've had some phenomenal results. In about the first month, we've had people losing as much as 8 kilos a month, which is close to 20 pounds lost in the first month. We've had people in 2 months lose between some as much as 11, some as 13 kilos over 60 days. And beyond just appearance, I think this is more about how people are in terms of their energy, in terms of their being and their confidence level. And the whole background and ethos behind FITBANKER, the greater context of why we exist, is we just believe humanity have a right to optimal use of their health and well-being. And their body is simply a vehicle for them to deliver their journey of whatever they're here for.
That's fantastic.
And what we would love to create, what we are out to create, is that everyone on this program, they get to transform something not just for themselves, but they become an icon of FITBANKER, or of this education, right, for their families. And then within their families, that spreads to their communities, and then within communities to wider societies and globally, right? So we really want this to be positively infectious as it grows. The participants we have just been phenomenal in terms of their commitment, in terms of actually showing in their results. So, that's what we exist for. Today's webinar, and Edward here, is predominantly to talk about the Eastern teachings, Eastern philosophy around health and well-being called Ayurveda. So before we go into that, I have a question for Edward. Is your background as a Ghanaian, born in London, studied philosophy and economics at London School of Economics. You now are a master or guru of very ancient Eastern Vedic teachings. I'm curious to understand how you sort of gain that interest and where's that variety or variation come from?
Thank you for such a wonderful question. First of all, I'd like to say that you're being very generous. I don't consider myself a master. I would say rather I'm a student and hopefully a servant of such ancient wisdom. But it's been a wonderful journey. I was, as you were saying, studying philosophy and economics at the London School of Economics. Before that, even when I was in my early teens, I read a lot about psychology, philosophy, spirituality, meditation, and so on. And I also started then to engage in meditation. Mm-hmm. And one of the key reasons that I engaged in meditation from the age of 13 is because I had read about how the average person uses less than 10% of their mental faculties. And I thought that was an amazing understanding of the human condition. Because imagine that you have a mansion and you restrict yourself to one small area within the basement of the mansion, and the vast majority of the mansion, the other 90% of the mansion, remains unexplored and unused. So when I read about that when I was very young, I also learned that the way to access more of that potential are through techniques such as meditation and so on. So that's what began my journey. So then when I was studying philosophy and economics at the London School of Economics, in my second year, we were looking at questions of, what is right activity? Actually, it was my first year, sorry. Problems of philosophy and methodology. How do you determine right action? Is there a higher being? What is the self? What is our real identity, etc., etc. And so we were looking at what Western philosophers had to say on these issues. But from previous reading and also through the meditation, I knew that there were also Eastern teachings or Eastern philosophies which also address these same issues, although I hadn't dived into it so much. So that began my journey into starting to explore what Eastern teachings had to say. So the first part was in my first year, I started to dabble into their philosophical concepts alone. But in the second year, I also started to engage in more meditative practices that would bring those philosophies to life. And since then, I can honestly say it's opened up a phenomenal paradigm of knowledge and wisdom, which every day enthralls me and which I'm so excited to share with the world, because I've seen how, to say it enhances my life is an understatement. I can honestly say I feel that this knowledge has transformed the quality of my life and the quality of my relationships, the quality of my endeavors. And when I see the contrast with those who are not so familiar with these teachings, it excites me even more, because I understand that we have a great and formidable treasure that we can share with the world, and which is why I'm so glad to be here to share one aspect of that, which is the understanding around Ayurveda, which is to do with health, lifestyle, etc. So that's how my journey came, and through that I met many great teachers. I'm regularly in touch with many great teachers. And one of my primary teacher, he passed away 10 years ago. We were at a memorial for him earlier this year, and he was a leadership expert. He wrote many books on leadership and so on. And I just feel it's a tremendous paradigm, and I'm very glad and very excited that we've been able to be, you've been kind enough to give us this opportunity. And for your viewers, I feel that, as you look into these Vedic teachings, it will enhance the quality of your life in ways that you cannot possibly even imagine. And that's my own experience so far.
Excellent. Really lovely to hear and get appreciation of that context of how we could really shift our lives. So before we move on to that, just a bit about your guru. Is that, can you tell me a bit about that guru? Is it B.T. Swami?
Yeah, B.T. Swami. So he was actually one of the leaders in Martin Luther King's civil rights movement. He was a graduate from Princeton University. He actually created many different organizations to help uplift people from poor backgrounds and so on, because He himself came from a very poor background, but by his hard work and also being recognized by certain people achieving scholarships, he was able to move up. He was also an advisor to people like Nelson Mandela and other high-ranking government officials and leaders throughout the world. He wrote many books dealing with leadership, relationships, and so many other topics. And so I feel that a lot of what we're giving is just trying to pass on what the gifts that were shared with us, which we know and experience every day, to allow us to fulfill our potential, as you were saying earlier, in life, in ways that, to be honest with you, if I'm really honest, breathtaking.
Yeah.
I was telling you earlier that I was speaking to one of my mentees, because I mentor various individuals, and we were discussing some things around parenting. And I gave a seminar, I think it was earlier this year or last year, and explained certain points of child psychology from the Ayurveda.
Yeah.
There's a section of the Ayurveda called the Kumara Britya.
Britya,
which deals with child psychology, explaining how to interact with children at different stages and why, and what it actually gives to the child, and therefore how to help bring up children who have great self-esteem, great confidence, and so we're talking about potential, and who can therefore be world players, strong, confident, yet at the same time humble and balanced individuals. And so I'm very excited about this Eastern knowledge, and I'm very excited about what it can do, what it's done for me, what it does for those who I share it with, and what it can do for our viewers as well.
All right, excellent. So in terms of impact lifestyle, right, and participants on this program, can you talk a bit more about the areas of their life that would shift from their well-being to energy levels to their mindset? This webinar series is actually called the Body, Mind and Intellect series. So we do coach on each of them, and hence this is one of the opportunities for people to understand, what areas of their life they can tap into with this education.
Excellent. So to answer your question, I'll say I've been on a very profound journey over the last 25 years or so to understand more about specifically my body, my mind, my intellect. And it's a journey that continues to draw benefit every single day, and I think this is a journey that you're helping your viewers to go on. Now, Ayurveda has profound things to say in this respect. There's a system that we were sharing with some corporate professionals, which is in relation to how one can realize their potential. And in one sense, that system begins with knowledge. But there are two classes of knowledge for the purposes of this discussion. One is general knowledge, and so many people will try to read and understand various types of books around the whole personal development sphere. Now, what's very exciting, and which is what I think you're bringing your viewers to more and more in this series, is specific personal knowledge about their particular nature, the particular type of body they have, the particular type of mind they have, the particular type of intelligence they have. And this is where Ayurveda really comes into its own. So Ayurveda is one of the world's most ancient systems of health and well-being. Okay? There are Ayurvedic treatises such as the Charaka Samhita, which explains so much about the different body types, what types of food work for them, what types of lifestyle work for them, etc. And as one understands their own particular body type, which also relates to a mental type, then they can also understand how to live in a way which is harmonious with that body type, as opposed to fighting against their nature. I was discussing and sharing some point by one great kind of advisor in the Vedic or Eastern knowledge tradition. His name is Chanakya, I think maybe you've heard of him. And he makes a very wonderful statement. He says, everything unnatural is an enemy. Right? Because he has these, what they're called sutras, which are short, terse aphorisms, which encapsulate great knowledge and wisdom, but in very succinct ways or concise ways. So I was reflecting on that because I was looking at preparing something around some of these statements in the management seminar that I was going to give. So he says this, and I was thinking how powerful it is when people know what type of body and mind they have, and they can live in a way that's harmonious. it also has connotations even for who you marry. Because as we'll go through the body types, you'll understand that they relate to different types of personality or nature.
Yeah.
And therefore, when you find people who have compatible, not necessarily the same,
Yeah.
but compatible natures, it's easier to work. Specifically, also related to the intellect. Think about this as a scenario. You have two individuals with different types of intellect. Not that one's better or worse than the other, but different types of intellect. Someone is very, very analytical. Okay? So they like to analyze things down to the detail. They like to think in that particular way. They like to discuss global issues, etc., and break them down. Someone else's intellect is more of a casual intellect. They're more into just discussing things in a very light way.
Yeah.
Okay? And they like to be very simplistic in their thinking. Now imagine that those two people are married. One of the most important things for harmonious relationships is harmonious communication.
Yeah.
Right? But if people don't understand the intellect, which is what you were talking about earlier, then they'll find that they're on different wavelengths. That's why in Eastern teachings, they even use certain systems to look at what type of intelligence the different personalities have. Because if you've got someone who's very analytical, let's say they're a high court judge or barrister,
yeah.
they know the constitutes of law, they're able to break things down into very great analytical detail, then they're with someone who's very simplistic in their thinking. The High Court judge comes home and wants to discuss the case, discuss the details of the case, but their partner cannot understand or appreciate the details. She wants to discuss what she saw on the TV soap opera.
Yeah.
So they're on different wavelengths, and then they find it's harder to feel satisfied in the exchanges because their intellects are of a different type.
Got it.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally makes sense.
So we want to understand ourselves so we can really, as you said, really achieve our potential. One of the key instruments for achieving potential is knowledge, specifically self-knowledge, and living life according to that nature.
Okay.
Because it's like a light bulb. When the light bulb is correctly situated, when it's correctly plugged in,
yeah.
everything is illuminated.
Lights up, yeah.
Exactly. And when it's not, when it's in the wrong place, even though it has the potential to illuminate greatly,
yeah.
you don't see any light.
Got it. Okay. It's excellent to know that, because it's interesting to know, because when you understand your body type, when you understand your intellect, we can therefore we can read ourselves when we are falling trapped to our own identity, or
definitely. When you understand your nature, you can actually, when you know yourself, when you can understand or analyze yourself in this way, naturally you'll find that you can analyze and understand others.
Got it.
Because the same index with which you're analyzing yourself is the same index for which you can apply that to others and get an accurate measure of what type of nature they actually have. It's very powerful. And therefore you can see by association how it helps build relationship. I was speaking to a couple earlier today, and they were feeling some disappointment because they were struggling in a particular situation, and they were telling me that some of the people, friends and family that they're around, when they express what they're going through, they don't receive the kind of empathy that they expected. And I was explaining to them that
so this is the couple not receiving empathy from friends and family
around them. Some friends and family. So I was explaining also there is a science of friendship. So in the Eastern teachings, it says friendship should be cemented, or it should be cultivated with people who are of mutual interest and understanding. It is said that such people are said to be swajati, which is a Sanskrit term.
Yeah.
What that means is, for relationships to be deep and meaningful, first of all, we should be loving and friendly to everyone and respectful to everyone.
Yeah.
But who you will be close to, for closeness, there needs to be some common ground. You see, this is a science of friendship and relationship. So you have to have the right things in common, some common ground, and complementary differences. So now there's a big thing in the corporate sphere about unity and diversity.
Within teams.
Yes, within teams, within corporations, etc.
Yeah.
So they've understood that by diversity, you can gain a different myriad of perspectives, and that can enhance a particular initiative.
Got it.
Now, what the ancient Vedic teachings do is they explain where there should be diversity and where there should be unity. You see, you actually need both to be maximal. So for a team or department to actually bring out their full potential, you need to have common ground in the right areas,
Yeah.
and you also need to have diversity in the right areas. So there's a section of literatures called the Dharma Shastras, which are Eastern teachings, and they explain how the kings, when they were forming their governments, they would look for people or for ministers who have similar values but different competencies. You see? So what you have is you break down and you eliminate or you minimize office politics or ministerial politics. Why? Because their values are the same.
Yeah.
Politics occurs by different values and objectives.
Yeah.
So you find people with similar values, but their competencies are different, so they can achieve the goals of the organization, of the government, etc. And along with that, they have different or mutually beneficial perspectives. Because there's a science on how to communicate also, of how to bring forward your perspective without creating this a mood where people are scared to share optimally. You see?
Yeah.
When people feel secure, and this is something we discuss sometimes in team building, then they don't mind getting it wrong. I know we've all experienced that sometimes you're in a company, in a project, in a department, you have an idea, it could be very valuable, but there's someone in that, or there are other people in that team who shoot down anything that's wrong. Shooting down is not the same as analyzing, but because they shoot it down and the person identifies with their idea, the person feels shut down, so for fear of looking stupid, they stop speaking and stop sharing.
Yeah.
But when you create a collaborative team building, where people are valued for their contribution, and then you can all discuss collectively the substance of it, or what elements are useful, then people are not scared to make mistakes. They found that those children, this is very interesting, the researchers found the same thing that Krishna told Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita over 5,000 years ago. And I discussed this when we were talking about parenting. There are two classes of parents. One class of parents, they praise their children for the results that the child gets.
Yeah.
The other class of parents praise their children for the quality of the effort or endeavor that the child makes. They found that those children who were praised for the quality of their endeavor throughout their life were far more successful and had far higher self-esteem and self-confidence than those children who were praised for the quality of their result. Why? Because you can see, some people work very hard, but due to circumstances beyond their control, they may not get the result that they want.
Got it. Okay.
Another person may work less hard, but they get more of a result.
Okay.
So if you praise people by the result, then every time a person wants to achieve a result, even if it's not their fault, it breaks down their self-esteem and self-confidence. Whereas if you praise them for their endeavor, because they can control that, they can always feel good that they've done their best. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. We met a few years ago, and I was talking about my energy levels being a bit lethargic or tired, particularly tired, and you said I was a Kapha body type.
Yes.
So can you just tell me a bit more about what are the body types? How can people know what body type they are, and what are the attributes of those?
Excellent. So it's a good question.
I'm just going to take note here.
No problem at all. So in Ayurveda, they have 3 basic classes of body type.
Yeah.
But specifically, there are actually 7 body types altogether. So I'll explain how that breaks down. So you have 3 basic body types. There is the Vata body type, okay, and that relates to in Western health understanding or medicine. That relates to what's called the ectomorph body type.
Okay.
So some of your viewers may find that actually their body type tends to be quite lean.
Yeah.
Okay. They may find that their body type tends to be such that they get cold easily, that they don't do well in cold climates for that reason, right? And that they struggle to put on weight. Okay. So that is the Vata or ectomorph body type. The next body type is you have what's called the Pitta body type. The Pitta body type is also related to, in the Western medical system, it relates to what's called the mesomorph body type. Pitta body types are very interesting. They tend to have more of a heat element in the body. So it was interesting, I gave one seminar on this years ago.
Yeah.
And it was in central London. And when we gave the seminar, it was funny because I was speaking and the window was open.
Mm-hmm.
So one individual closed the window and he was Vata, right? And then as the seminar was going on, then when there was a break, someone else, even though it was, some people considered it was quite cold in the room,
yeah.
or wasn't that warm in the room, someone else was saying, I'm boiling in here, and that person opened the window. And the reason why they opened the window is they were Pitta body types. Because Pittas actually have more natural heat in the body. So that's why you may be in one room and the different individuals in the same room, which is the same temperature, are all experiencing that same environment differently because their body types are different. The third type is called the Kapha body type.
Yeah. And
the Kapha body type relates to what's called the endomorph body type in Western kind of health understandings. So Pitta body types, they tend to have more of a muscular structure. Their build is more medium build, like that. And they have a natural heat within their body, so they tend to prefer environments which are cool. Pitta body types do not like warm environments. Right? They do not like warm environments because they already have a certain level of body heat, so they prefer environments which they consider to be cool. Then you have Kapha body types. Kapha body types tend to be body types where they tend to put on weight easily and hold weight, you know, like that. So they can do well in different kind of temperatures, but they may struggle to lose weight because their system, their metabolism, each of these body types have different metabolisms. The metabolism of the Kapha body type tends to be the slowest. The fastest metabolism is the Vata body type, and Pitta has a medium metabolism, like that. So that's just some idea. And the reason why I said that there's 7 types is because apart from these 3 classes, there are also combinations. Okay, so you can have Vata, Pitta, Kapha, but then you can have Vata, Pitta, or Vata, Kapha, right? Then you can have Pitta, Vata, or Pitta, Kapha. You can have Kapha, Vata, Kapha, Pitta, and then you can also have what's called Tridoshik. The person who's Tridoshik is a balanced combination of all 3 of these particular body types, and these are called doshas. It's a Sanskrit word, and the Sanskrit word dosha literally translates as fault. So this is very interesting, and this is very interesting for lifestyle and for health as well. I'll explain why it's translated as fault. So in the Vedic system, it's said that the body is made up of 5 basic elements, and these are elements not in the gross sense, but they're representative of certain kinds of energy. So we hear that there are, in the Ayurvedic system, there's earth, water, fire, air, and ether. Okay? So the Vata type has air and ether as the 2 elements which are there. So therefore what is lacking is earth, fire, and water. So you know that we understand that water is very good for all body types. It helps to flush the system out, clear the toxins and so on. My wife just told me yesterday, actually, she reminded me that she read something from a Vedic literature called the Rig Veda. And in the Rig Veda, it says water is the best medicine. Like that. Because it actually helps to cleanse the system. It has so many benefits. So the Vata body type, all body types need water. But if Vatas don't drink water, their health goes down quicker than the others because that element is already very much missing. So when we say dosha, what it means is that there are 2 elements out of 5 within a certain body type. And that means there's a fault, meaning there's an incompleteness, meaning that in the lifestyle, you're meant to bring the missing 3 elements in through your lifestyle. And in that way, you kind of complete the circuit. Does that make sense? So Vata is air and ether. That's why they tend to be thin, lighter body types and so on. Pitta has fire and water, right? So it needs more the earth, air and ether element in there. Kapha is earth and water, so it needs the missing 3. And so when these 3 are in the life, it's more complete. So to give a very clear example, so a Vata body individual, the elements which are predominant are air and ether. Therefore, if they don't have enough heat, which is like, you know, the fire element, you know. If they don't,
cold.
Yeah, exactly, they'll feel cold and that brings the health down. If they don't have the earth element within their life can be represented by strong foundations, a clear, regulated framework to work around, you know?
Yeah.
Then that makes life a bit difficult. If they don't have the water element, that means nice, harmonious relationships, because water also relates to relationships, feelings. And if they're not drinking enough water, then their health and well-being can go down. Yeah?
Can I ask a question on this connection between the body types and metabolism?
Yes.
So one big thing we did, we had a very brilliant webinar on metabolism. So what slows down your metabolism and foods that we can eat to boost your metabolism. In addition, we also introduced the timing of foods, the quantities of foods, the nutritional content, and something a bit radical I've introduced here, and I don't know if there's any Ayurvedic connection, is we've actually introduced cold showers. So cold showers, which means to boosting metabolism. It's something I started during my own 90-day body transformation challenge, and it put me distinctly apart from other people in the program.
Very interesting.
But I'd love to hear from you. I'm just mindful of time that we can cover the remaining questions. Is for each of these body types, what food types would you recommend that will have them compensate for whatever of the 5 what are they called, forces or?
Yeah, so the elements.
5 elements that they are low in, that will help them boost that and their metabolism.
Excellent. So first of all, in terms of metabolism, it's recommended there are different types of exercise or different kinds of movement and lifestyle. That's what works on that, and I'll come back to that.
Okay.
In terms of food, so we see, it's a real science, and once you understand the language of this science, it's very easy to see what works.
Got it.
So for example, because Vata body types have air and ether, and for example, Vata body types, because of that, they tend to have dry skin and so on, so they need more lubrication. So foods which are very fluid, so lots of soups, right? So what is soup? It has a water element because it's fluid, and also it's a soup, so is it hot or cold? It's hot, so it brings in the heat element as well. Do you see the point?
Yeah.
So you look and see what's missing and you bring that in. Vata types need food which is also weighty, right? So like grains, like rices.
So carb rich?
Yeah, that can be like that. So rices, pastas, like that. Because foods which are more heavy, because air and ether is very light. Foods which are more heavy will have more of the earth element. Does that make sense? So, so also for Vatas, cold foods are not good. Yeah. So they've already got cold. Their body's already cold, so you need to bring the heat in. So food should be warm. They should be weighty, have some heaviness to them, and they should also, there should be lots of fluid. It doesn't mean all the food has to be fluid, but there should be lots of fluid and lots of warm fluid. Now Pitta's very, in some ways, different. Pittas already have a lot of heat. They need things which are cooling. So for example, Pitta, foods which are more cool. They should have lots of hot foods, and for Pittas, very spicy food is a definite no-no.
Really?
Yeah, they are less tolerant of spicy food because it extends the heat even higher, and they don't need it. Pittas tend to have good digestion for a longer time because of the fire element in the body. So foods which are cooling, like that, so more foods which are like cold, that kind of works well for Pitta. So Pitta is fire and is water. So again, foods which are more heavy because the earth element, So you're looking for those foods which are lighter, which are also heavier. They have the element of water already, they have the element of fire already. So you're trying to bring in the other elements. Does that make some sense?
Yeah, and just so participants understand, the Vata body type, would you define it as somebody with a skinnier build?
But let's be clear, let's be very clear on that. So Vata body types, they tend to have a skinnier build. But when it's naturally skinny, it's not because they're skinny because they're gone for many years and they're just not eating properly. But they find that they are naturally skinny. What's really interesting about this science is, for example, there's a multi-million-pound industry where sometimes people are made to feel a certain way because of how their body is, but there's certain defaults in that. You see the point?
So if you're naturally skinny, you don't know how the industry is booming because they're making them feel inadequate as not being one of the others.
Oh, exactly. And I think you've brought up a really powerful point I wanted to mention, and that is, we want to, from the Vedic or Eastern perspective, when we want to start on this journey of working with the body, the most powerful and empowering starting point is to understand one of the basic principle that Krishna taught Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita. The first principle he taught Arjuna, which I'd like to share with our viewers, which will empower you to no end when you're dealing with these things, is that you have a body, but you are not this body. Now, why do I share that? Because it gives you psychological distance to what's going on in your body, and therefore you have the potential to have high self-esteem and confidence irrespective of how your body is at any point in time. Because as you know, it takes time to get the body to a particular point that you want. And we don't want to lose the self-esteem, because actually a key factor of the transformation is you need some self-esteem and motivation to get your body to where you want it to be. You see the point? So if you're feeling too down about it, it can actually cut into the motivation that you would use as a fuel to get your body to keep you going.
I'm going to come on to that. We talk about how our body is effectively our five senses, right? And how, when it comes to food, we get hooked to particular tastes.
Great point.
How our feelings and emotions, right, which is our mind, is like pain. So when we're working out, pain is effectively a message, and we allow that to dominate us stopping action. And so we coach people on, getting that that's just a message, and how you can stay committed to what you are setting out to do, whether it's a run or a workout, regardless of that message of pain, which is just a signal being sent to your brain.
So they tend to be a bit more muscular, a bit more toned by nature.
Got it.
Yeah, like that. So it's a medium build. So you have the skinny build, medium build, and the kapha tends to be a bit more weighty. A bit more fleshy in the build.
So when you met me, I was 180 kilos.
Yes.
And I was a billboard for kapha, right? But has that changed, or do we end up staying the same?
No. What happens is your actual basic Ayurvedic constitution doesn't change, but you can bring it in terms of the actual external build to different points. Like that. So you are a kapha, but you've really toned up. You see that point? And by your exercise and by your lifestyle, your routine, you're keeping the weight off. Do you see the point? But you should know that if someone's a kapha, they're going to be working harder to keep the weight off because their metabolism is different. Whereas someone else is a pitta, they're actually not working very hard and they're toned by nature. You see the point? But if they work a bit more, they can tone up even more. So because they're starting from a different point.
So just for our participants, I'll share this, and as I'm learning through this transformation journey, there are training plans that are provided, and I've noticed that there are tweaks that we can make from understanding this. As an example, I did a bit of research just before this interview and understanding as a kapha, and knowing I'm very familiar from the world of bodybuilding with ectomorph, mesomorph, and endomorph. And I did a little analysis on my body type, and I'm mixed between the mesomorph and the endomorph, but more so endomorph. And I was surprised that there was literal translation. I didn't know that. But that said, what applies or what works for me is for me to maintain this body and to keep the fat off, because I naturally, as a kapha, would gather fat. I have to have increased and intense amount of cardio. And we do have a couple participants in our program, and Chirag, maybe Sharad, you might fall within the Vata type. And what might be appropriate for you, actually, looking at this now and speaking to Edward, is probably reducing amounts of cardio. So that might be, looking at more resistance training, right, to build muscle, and reducing the cardio. So it's really interesting understanding your body type, and then we can tweak our working plans around that.
Perfect.
Okay. Great. Is there? I just want to. We do have 15 minutes, and I have loads of questions that I haven't got to ask. I'm going to take 2 more questions before we go to third. Does that work for you? Okay. So you spoke about your lifestyle DNA, like designing your life according to your nature. So what does this refer to? Is this stuff like what time we wake up, what we eat, what time of day we exercise?
This is a very brilliant question. I'm so glad you've asked it.
If you could give us in about 2 minutes.
Sure. I'll give you a rundown of some things what I mean by lifestyle DNA. So you mentioned earlier about also eating times and so on. Your health can immediately improve if you know certain key things around Ayurveda, which is related to lifestyle DNA. For example, it's good for everyone, if they can, to sleep early and rise early. Yeah? I'll maybe pass on some information you can pass on to your participants as well around this.
Yeah, I'd love to, whatever you can provide.
So there's even scientific studies which find that when you rise early and sleep early, key functions of the body are able to happen peacefully by you actually sleeping earlier and rising earlier. And you also infuse a lot more energy from nature by rising early. Now what happens also is that in Ayurveda it's advised that you eat between 12 and 2. Because at that time, your fire of digestion is actually strongest. So it's easier for the body to break down whatever food you've taken and to extract to maximum capacity the nutrients which are coming from that food. So you see, the trick is, most people understand they're going to eat the right thing, but the real thing to understand is you also have to help your body to be able to extract all the benefit from what you're eating.
Yeah.
So it's potentially the case that there are many people in the sphere of health and well-being who are eating exactly the right thing, but the body isn't extracting full benefit because their digestion isn't working so well, you know?
Yeah, so it's a concept we call value-based eating.
Exactly.
That I introduced. Value-based means predominantly through the history of life and subconsciously as we're growing up, you know, I would hear my dad or my mum or someone in the family say, oh, food tastes good or doesn't taste good.
Mm-hmm.
That's based on the value of the tongue. So
Exactly.
taste-based value.
Exactly.
And what we introduce is what's called functional-based value. So when we understand what function that plays, from the carbohydrate is for the energy, the protein is for building of tissue and muscle,
Mm-hmm.
and the fats are for storage, right?
Yes.
When we can understand that and our needs, our daily pattern, we're altering our meal plans based on that.
Fantastic. And ideally, in
Yeah.
Ayurveda, what it tries to get at is that you're able to blend both together. So so as one gets knowledge, and obviously we won't have time to go into it today,
Yeah.
but as one gets knowledge, you want to have tasty meals which are also in line with the particular dosha of your body. So it tastes nice, you feel mentally satisfied, and it is actually functionally beneficial. But of the two, better to eat healthy than just to be a slave of the taste, which is actually, I think, the point that you're making.
Yeah, so what there's some recipes, like we do certain juices, smoothies that we offer, and I have to make sure they stay below a particular calorie count
Yes.
for participants, but they're filling and equally they're a great mix such that they're nutritious.
Fantastic.
So that's what we have participants have that in place of a breakfast.
That's fantastic.
And the key thing I find is that when I used to put whatever I wanted without knowing the content, I would generally get smoothies that are A, they take long to prepare, and B, sometimes they don't taste good. So I'm really not encouraged to make them again. But what we've found is that if we can make them tasty, people don't feel like I'm sacrificing eating this.
Exactly. That's a brilliant point.
Yeah.
Just one other point about lifestyle DNA is there are different, how can I put it, there are different times in the day where different types of things are more optimally done.
Mm-hmm.
So the morning is good for your more kind of planning the day, meditative practices, all of those types of things, contemplation, where you're working things out.
So planning your day, meditation,
that kind of, anything like that. Afternoon, so this is called the sattva time of the day.
The morning.
Which is considered to be what's called, in the category what's called goodness.
What time to what time?
It is from 2 o'clock a.m. to 10 a.m. So that's considered time in the mode of goodness. From 10 a.m. till 6 p.m., that period of time is a time in the mode of passion. So that is the best time for execution, to be busy, active, and so on and so forth.
From 10 a.m. to?
Till 6 p.m.
Okay.
From 6 p.m. through to 2 a.m. again,
Yeah.
that is considered time for the mode of goodness, mode of ignorance, sorry. That is the best time for slowing down. So it's considered that morning is for meditation, planning the day, any of the intellectual kind of exercise where you're thinking things through wisely. 10 till 6 is best for execution, being active, executing your plan, as it were. 6 onwards is best for downtime, relaxation, socializing, relaxing.
Yeah.
Because the body actually needs all these different things. So in order to have continuous positive cycles of activity, you also need positive cycles of rejuvenation.
Yeah.
Sometimes people's lifestyle goes out of balance because they're so active they burn out. Then other people, they're so inactive that they actually start to lose momentum in their lives. So you need to have a balance of different things, and the balance is different for different people, but you can use different points in the day for different things, which way is optimal as well.
Okay. All right, excellent. It's interesting to know. So I work out in the morning, right? We have people that will work out, some do at lunchtime and some do it in the evening. Is there an optimal time based on your body type or generally for all?
It would say that actually the more it's within that 10 till 6 period, it's better. But if you can't do that, because sometimes, you know,
Does it work?
Does it work? Yeah. If you could do something at lunchtime in the gym, fantastic. If you can't, then as close before or after is actually good.
So I have another interesting question. Maybe society as a whole, we've got our whole pattern of our day mixed up. And
that would be pretty fair.
Yeah. So are you saying this is just because you use the 10 to 6 as the passion time?
Yes.
Is that when we should be love making rather than during the ignorance time?
Oh, actually, if you want to get into that love making thing, that's a whole discussion. But I can't actually build. There is actually something in the Ayurveda which explains to you the optimum time for actually procreation. In the Vedic teachings, it's actually explained that for procreation, there are specific times which are more optimal. But I think if I remember correctly, it's meant to be evening, and there's a whole explanation as to why, but I'll have to double check that. There is a science to that, and you'll find it very interesting. That science is called Garbhadan Samskar. It's a whole science where you can actually determine the character of your child, the gender of your child. You can actually predispose your child to have a very strong physical health even before they're born.
Oh, very
We'll
good.
go into that another time if you wish.
Okay. So guys, no need to change your agenda at work between 10 to 6 yet. Maybe in another webinar we'll talk about that. Edward, we are short of time now.
I think maybe let's open up for Q&A still.
Sure, guys. Have we got any questions coming in? Are there any questions at the end?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you mind just shouting them out?
Yeah. Do you recommend abstaining from eating meat, alcohol, tobacco, and drugs?
Good question. Short answer is yes.
Yeah.
Long answer is yes. I'll explain why. These things are considered toxins, and they actually...
So meat, alcohol, tobacco,
and drugs, yeah. Because what actually happens is they actually make your body... what happens is they create more toxins in your body, so a lot of your energy that would actually affect your body in a healthy way is actually diverted to clean out the poisons within your body. And what you'll find, and this is according to Ayurveda also, it affects your lifespan. So you see, people often think that if my body's physically stronger and healthier, that is the only factor, and therefore I'm going to live optimally in terms of lifespan. But actually, it's not that simple. Someone's body can be very toned, but also it can be worn down a lot because what they're taking in is increasing amounts of poison, which are actually damaging the body. So you'll sometimes see, if you go into any hospitals, my wife's a doctor, I was saying that earlier, you'll sometimes see people who externally appear very muscular, physically strong, but they've got illnesses and ailments because their internal situation is actually weak, and that's actually due to the taking in of these kinds of things, you know, the meat, fish, eggs, all those kinds of things. Because there's a book called Total Health by someone called Peter Burwell. She was an tennis champion, world tennis champion, and he goes into extensive detail about that. That's where I'm getting a lot of this information from, as well as the Ayurvedic aspect. So it's advised that you find, and there are many healthy and tasty alternatives. So it's not about losing out on flavour, but it's about not making your body work so hard, especially the kidneys, which has to flush out all the poisons.
Yeah, it's a lot of the meal plans we provided, all of them are actually vegetarian.
That's absolutely fantastic.
Primarily because of as a transformation program, if you're too used to your system processing heavier foods like the meats, it increases your metabolism by them going, at least for the first 5 weeks, they go vegetarian. And we've seen some phenomenal results.
Just to add to that, there was one study I was looking at, and it's explained that for humans, the intestinal tract is about 12 to 14 times the length of the body. So when someone eats meat, what happens is you actually have decaying flesh which can stay in the intestines for months. And as it's decaying, it takes a long time to move through the intestines, it's releasing poisons. I think it's called uric acid. And therefore those poisons are working the body harder to get rid of the poisons. So you don't want that.
Yeah, got it, excellent. Are there some more questions there? I'm going to just take one more question here.
Please do.
Yeah, it's interesting that you're talking about the time. We did a webinar where we talked about how long that takes. Like fruits can take as little as an hour.
Exactly, fantastic.
And a burger which has got complex carbohydrates, according to that research, was about 3 to 4 days. Right?
It can take longer,
Yeah.
but I'm very glad. I can see that the quality of what you're delivering to your audience is very advanced, because in many areas of health and wellbeing, there's no discussion on how long these things take to break down.
Yeah.
You know, but
Yeah.
this is important to know if you're really looking at well-being, because we want to look good and actually have the system working, optimally internally as well.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it totally does. And another big thing around the quality of the food, when you talk of unnatural foods, they are your biggest enemy, or unnatural. Anything unnatural is an enemy. So we have that for foods, that the more processed they are, the
Yes.
more unhealthier it is. Even
Yes.
from processed sugars to, there's a lot of what we call corn syrup. They put in a lot of foods nowadays as a preservative and a sweetener, and that is, anything overly processed isn't great for the body. And
Can I just explain to you,
Yeah.
into why that's the case?
sure. Well, I'll let you. I'd love to hear the Ayurvedic.
So basically what happens is all foods, the closer they are to nature, the more they have the enzymes and the nutrients in their fullest and most profound expression.
Yeah.
Now, as they get processed more and more, a lot of that live energy actually goes out of the food. There is a technology called the Kirlian photography. What this does is it actually pictures the biomagnetic field around any particular living organism. So what they did is they used this, it's a high voltage camera.
Yeah.
And they found that the more processed the food is, the weaker the biomagnetic energy around the food is, so the less live food is. So therefore, when you take food which is more and more processed, in Ayurveda or Eastern teachings, it's called the prana. And in some traditions, they call it the chi energy.
Yeah.
So the more processed it is, the less prana it actually has. Yeah? And therefore, the subtle strength that you would derive both physically and mentally from the food is actually minimized. Now, it's also interesting in Ayurveda, when you eat food, a certain percentage of the food becomes your physical body, but a certain quality of the food actually becomes your mental body. So the food you eat actually affects the quality or the material that's making up your mind. And that's why it's considered that the more processed, the worse, because you want it closer to nature, because when it's closer to nature, it adds more live energy.
Amazing.
Two questions.
Yeah.
So one is it bad for any of the body types to eat raw foods?
Very good question. Okay. So this is something that sometimes people have a controversy about, but I'm going to just be very straight with you.
Just want to make sure the question's repeated so everybody gets it. Is it bad for any of the body types to eat raw foods? Is the question.
Okay. So I researched this because I was also interested. My wife, we discussed this a lot. I said she's a doctor. So what it's actually found is when you take when it's raw, like uncooked, like vegetables, for example, it's not actually considered very good. And I'll explain why.
Really?
Yeah, but there are some exceptions to that. So I think when you break it down in terms of a shake, it's different, okay? But I'll explain why. So what happens is vegetables have a cellulose wall around them, okay? Now what cooking does is it breaks down the cellulose wall, and that cellulose wall then allows you to access the nutrients in the food, right? So therefore, Ayurvedically, those things will be cooked, because then it breaks down the cellulose. So when you chew it, that also helps you to access the nutrients as well.
Yeah.
Or when you kind of blend it, which is different. You see the point?
Yeah.
But if you don't do those things, then only the area, then that's what you've actually chewed and broken down. Because otherwise, when you just eat it, and the areas which are not broken down, the stomach acid has trouble getting at the nutrients from those foods, and it's actually harder for the body to digest those foods. Yeah, so that's the Ayurvedic angle on that.
The question is,
the audience.
Sure.
What is the best way to encourage people around you to not lose momentum in their journey to fitness, especially educating family on fitness, complex carbs, fats, etc.?
Very good question. I think this is actually a key point, because and I know you've touched upon motivation previously.
Yeah, so how to motivate yourself in training, how to motivate family, and inspire them with the knowledge and education that we provide.
Okay. So the key thing about motivation is you need to have a strong enough reason why. Okay.
A strong enough reason why.
Yes, exactly. Because like you said, there will be tests and obstacles. There will be times where you feel like, you know what you should eat, but you're just tempted by that chocolate bar that you've been missing for the last 2 weeks, and whatever. So it is advised that one actually writes down. This has a psychological.
So they should write that down.
Write down what is your purpose in taking forward this program. What are the specific gains in different areas? How can it affect you more positively, emotionally? How may it enhance your well-being in terms of how you can then have more time and energy for your friends, family, etc., etc. Put them down. Read it every day or look at it, reflect upon it, because that will also build an internal muscle. It'll build the strength of willpower to keep going even when there's difficulties. Second point, don't worry if you sometimes lose a battle when looking at winning the war. So if in sometimes due to circumstance or whatever distraction you deviate slightly from what you know is optimal, then okay, I made a mistake, just get back on. Often people think they have to be perfect and they can't make any mistakes or the whole thing's lost. No,
it's not.
It's not at all. It's actually by the continuation of winning small wars and small battles that the war is won. So I would say that's the second thing. Recognize that there may be times that you may slightly make a mistake, but as long as your determination is proper and you keep trying, you are guaranteed to win the war. That's the second point. Third point, educate those around you, and most importantly, those who you educate around you should be those who are influential to you. If it's people who you don't worry about, and if people are going to be negative, you may not even want to tell them that you're doing this. But those who know, who you can get support from, who are supportive of your endeavor, those people you should educate, and you can request. You say why you're doing this, and you can request their support, and you want to share with them those small victories.
It's brilliant. It's brilliant what you're saying, because and many of you might know that we have this on our program, and I've not planned this or heard this from Edward before. But when everybody joins, there's a questionnaire they complete. And in there's a big question we put, which is, what is your greater why? Why are you doing this? And we asked them, and it was interesting, majority of the respondents, about 50-60%, had a greater context beyond just them, beyond an aesthetic reason. And it was things like, because health and well-being isn't great in my thing, or my father has diabetes, and I don't want that for my children, or I want to see my grandchildren. And recently I've got my parents in the audience here who have got on this program, and I invited them to say, you guys have to have a greater why you want to do this, right? They're just approaching 70s, and I said, you have to create something bigger than I can walk around or whatever, but the context I work with them to create, and I'll now get them to write it down, as you say, is that they want to be around to play with their grandkids, right?
Brilliant.
So you both me and my wife, to get in action, secondly, and then mom and dad to get healthy, to be around for our grandkids.
That's fantastic. Just one more point on the reason behind the writing. In the Western mindset, when something is written down, it has a psychological weight like a contract. So therefore, it actually helps someone to stick to it because it's been formalized outside of one's own mind. So you can objectively see this is what I actually committed to. So it gives that strength to carry on.
It's brilliant. I think I'm going to implement something where people write down, like we have a training plan we follow each week, but maybe reading that and writing that down or reposting it or something for the week. What we also do, because a lot of our sharing happens on social media, whenever they make progress in terms of weight loss, whenever they share a recipe, whenever they are feeling they've overcome something, I invite them to share on social media.
That's brilliant. That's the key to motivation. See, what they found is after any self-improvement seminar or course, many people, there'll be a dip, they'll be inspired, they'll come up, then there'll be a dip, and often many will go back into their old patterns. However, the research has found that one of the key things that can take people beyond the course and keep them going upwards is if they lock into a support network of people who keep encouraging them. So that's what you're actually achieving with your social media. So then you have people celebrating their victories, and that actually institutes or installs a new habit within their mind, which is fantastic.
Because when I did my 90-day thing, one of the requirements when people join is that they put their before photos as they look out there, but by declaring that this is what's so. The first declaration of how their body is, creates a starting point that they're putting something at stake, that I am here to transform this.
Yes.
So it's kind of a declaration of how you are now, and that you're out to transform that. And when I did my 90 day, I was sharing, to some people it occurred as being vain, but to me, as you say, it was being surrounded by immense positive people that were always like, come on Ronnie, you can do this. And it truly sailed me through my 90 days.
It's fantastic. What you find is that when you're around supportive people, this is a real trick in all areas of life and motivation.
Yeah.
You are able to actually achieve more with less energy, because it's not your own energy alone that's moving you forward, but it's the collective inspiration and positive support. And that's why also the opposite is true. For people who want to be high achievers and to realize their full potential, we should make sure that we don't let our lives be sabotaged by people who are, like, I call them sometimes energy vampires. People who try to drain your energy to demotivate you. Now, what that means is there's a difference between a sincere well-wisher who thinks that something is unrealistic. That's different. The key essential point there is that they're sincere well-wishers. Then we can look at what they're saying. But if it's just someone who doesn't want you to do well, who's skeptical always, but without grounding and without caring, those people, we do not want them in our life. We don't want to allow them to drain us of energy and motivation. So if we lock ourselves into more supportive environments, and if we know intellectually, because you spoke about body, mind, and intellect, how much to give different weight to different people's statements. So someone who really cares about you, loves you, and is positive, you give more weight to them than someone who is around you but they're negative, because you don't want the negativity to bring you down, but you do want the positivity to bring you up.
That's very inspiring to hear.
Two questions rather. One is that I've heard that cooking or reheating food in microwave, it wilts away faster and probably is not good for health. Then it's better to cook in a conventional cooker. Another one is that green gram, which we
Among dal,
yes. Yeah, it's it really helps to reduce weight, which because I have tried it myself.
Yes.
What's your opinion on that?
Definitely. My wife and I, we love mung dal. Mung dal forever. That's very, very true. And second point is also true. We had a microwave. It was over a year ago we stopped using the microwave, and we did it for specifically that reason. We've done a lot, especially my wife being a doctor, done an immense amount of research, really looked into it, and found that actually there's so many things that happen with microwave food. This is beyond the scope of the time now, but we can get into it maybe another time. But it's found that, yeah, it actually takes away a lot of the nutrients from the food. So it's actually very healthy if you're, so you have to be balanced, because sometimes the lifestyle doesn't allow it. And if I'm going somewhere and they microwave food, I will take it. But wherever possible, we try and use a conventional way of doing things, because actually there's a lot of positive benefits by using that.
Is it true that it causes cancer as well?
Sorry?
Is it true that it can cause cancer if you cook in microwave?
There was some studies which suggested that it would have a carcinogenic effect in that sense as well, which is one of the reasons why some people are careful.
Okay. All right. So one last question?
Yeah, one last question.
Sure.
Maybe we can cover it later, but how do we find out what 3 basic body types we are? Where can we go for that?
So I will send you a questionnaire that I have.
Yeah.
It's a very simple question. There's many questionnaires online, but I can send one that I have specific, which I've used and it works very well. Yeah. And then maybe you can distribute that to your participants. And if you answer it, there's 3 different sections. You answer it, you add up the answers, it'll tell you immediately what particular body type.
That would be very useful to have. So I just want to wrap up now, guys. We are done. It's been brilliant, just over an hour we've taken, and thank you for everybody that's dialed into the webinar. Thank you for our audience on Periscope. It's been amazing. And for those of you that are following this on recording, thank you for taking the time out to listen to our webinar. Please stay tuned. If you've really enjoyed this webinar, we would love some interviews. We'd love some comments and feedback on our Facebook page or on Twitter or Periscope. Just send us some feedback, send us some comments. If you want to hear more from Edward, I could go on listening to Edward all day. If you want to hear more from Edward, we'd love to bring Edward again for another special thing. And,
I'd love to come. I'd love to come.
Yeah. To be honest, I wish we had more time to market this event, but dealing with a few breakdowns on my end, and I haven't been able to push it out as much. And I'd love to. We've still had a great turnout, and I'm going to probably do again. If we can, within a short period of time, we can work out the time when you can come again and have a great audience. But I just want to finally just acknowledge you so much for a lot of the knowledge and insight that you've shared with us.
Thank you so much for allowing me to come and share. Ronak is a wonderful person, and I really love everything that he does, and I'm always honoured and inspired to have your association. And thank you all for being here as well. And I'd love to come back and share whatever I can, especially as a favour to Ronak, who I think is a brilliant guy, and I want to congratulate you on all the wonderful stuff that you're doing.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And, I continue to proud myself.